On the Level podcast, your Masonic podcast. Join the hosts Billy McIntyre and Sam Earl Sedgey as they delve into the world of Freemasonry.
Hello and welcome to yet another episode of On the Level podcast. Hello, Billy. How's it going, mate? You all right?
It's going good here, Sam.
Oh, mate, I'm very excited for this episode. We've got the interview with the fantastic ladies from the Job's Daughters, and they'll break down who they are, what the organization's about. But you know, it's been a good week so far. I've got my Blue Lodge, which is Frank and Nicole. This Thursday, I'm looking forward to that, and then I'm going to England, and I'll be in England for about a couple of days, and then I'm going to Menorca, Spain. I'm taking my father with me, which I'm looking forward to, and my family. It's going to be amazing, and then back to England, and then back here. Now, what's really interesting is I contacted the Grand Lodge of Illinois, and they issued my letter of good standing. So what happens is when you go abroad as a Master Mason and you wish to travel to other lodges in the countries you are visiting, so for maybe England, Spain, the Grand Lodge will contact the other respective Grand Lodges and let them know, and then they will facilitate meetings or meetups with that particular person. And I've got a nice, lovely letter done by the Grand Secretary, and if I get the chance, that'd be great. I've got a few good friends in England who are brothers, and who'll probably meet up with me anyway. So I'm just very excited to see to go and see the Freemasons of Menorca if they're available.
Sure. Well, for the people that don't know, it's now Illinois, and I'm sure other states do the same thing. They issue this letter that basically gets you. It's like your Masonic passport for while you're traveling. Correct?
That's right.
And how long is that good for when they issue that? Do you know?
Well, there isn't really an expiration date, but it's good form and good order of getting a letter of good standing a couple of weeks or the week before you fly out. So either 2 or 3 weeks, because the issue would be if your letter of good standing is like a year old, 6 months old, 2 years old, then you may not be admitted. They'll be like, well, yes, that was 2 or 3 years ago or 6 months ago, but we need to make sure that you're a Master Mason of good standing. What that means is that you're all up to date with your dues, because as a member of any lodge or any organization, you have to pay a membership fee. There's a dues fee. And making sure that you're not naughty, you haven't been like suspended or disciplined for anything that's unbecoming of a Master Mason. So really, there is no expiration, but you should have a new letter of good standing every time you wish to, when you go to foreign countries or different jurisdictions and you're traveling and you want to visit. Otherwise, because what will happen is they will contact the Grand Lodge of Illinois. They will respond back and they will check the records, and if you're not of good standing, that's going to cause a lot of problems for you. So, you know, what's really cool is there's a lot of checks and balances that ensures that, you know, you don't have anyone who's not a member or no longer a member or not a member of good standing, you know, visiting other lodges. And it kind of makes sense. If you're not paying your membership fees in your own lodge,
you shouldn't be going somewhere else.
You shouldn't be going somewhere else. Hey, I'm going to 50 different lodges because I'm abroad, but I've never gone to my own lodge for like a million. Well, I haven't paid for my own lodge for members' dues for like a million years or whatever.
Right. Well, and I knew that. I just want to get the stuff out for other people that might be listening and wondering the same thing. I actually recently got one of those letters myself, because it's my hope in a couple of months I get to go to England when you go back, because I'd love to visit some of those historical places.
That's right. There's an opportunity for you and me and another companion, Sir Ron Full, if he can make it. I think he's going to be in Belgium, for us all three to be in England the same place, same time. And that's going to be epic because, what's really nice about English Freemasonry, so the Grand Line, so Billy is the most illustrious Grand Master of the Council of Cryptic Masons in the state of Illinois. I'm his I'm his illustrious Grand Chaplain, and I'm also the illustrious historian for the Council of Cryptic Masons of the state of Illinois. So, and then Ron is the illustrious Grand Treasurer, and he's also a past most illustrious Grand Master as well. So he did Billy's job a long time ago as well. So he's been around for quite some time now. The Grand Lines in pretty all jurisdictions, but especially England, are extremely revered. There is a lot of respect for those who have achieved that rank and state because of the time and effort and the quality. It's all about the quality and time. People are picked and chosen, and some are elected based on the quality of the person and the time that's put in. That's basically the theory. And in England, when they receive foreign grandees, the hospitality and the extension of brotherly love is fantastic, and they get excited because they get to see people from other countries coming and representing different jurisdictions, and they ask questions because we all have our own different quirks of way of doing things, and it's a lot of fun, and you really do bond and build bridges. And I can say on behalf of the English Freemasons that they're quite a top bunch of top quality men, and a lot of fun, and I can't wait for you to go, because when you go as a Master Mason, when you go to Freemasons Hall, wherever you're from around the world, it felt like this for me, Billy. When I first went there, it was like, I'm home. I'm home. It feels like home. It feels like a home away from home, and that was pretty impressive. And I remember getting lost in Freemasons, in Freemasons Hall, and but the security team knew exactly where I was going and what and I know the security team can see me going through all the passageways and halls, because a security guard came from somewhere, saw me, didn't really say anything to me, but tapped my shoulder and just pointed the direction I should be going.
The direction you were supposed to go.
And so there's a lot of reverence and respect from the massive team that runs that building, and not all of them are necessarily Freemasons. So there's a lot of respect given to Master Masons, and it's fantastic. And then there's Mark. If you are a member of the York Rite in the US, or the Christian order, the military Christian religious order of Freemasonry, which is the York Rite, you can go to once you got the invitation to go get the invitations of going and sitting in Mark Mason's Hall for any Royal Arch degrees, any cryptic degrees, and any commandery degrees, or even just their stated meeting. Now, I went to England. I've been in the Royal Arch, which was fantastic. I went to the Grand Masters Lodge number 1 in Memorial, which was the Council Lodge, which was amazing. Those guys were fantastic. And I also went to a commandery in Ealing in the Priory, where I was made an honorary Sir Knight, and that was that was a big deal, because I was born there. I was born in that part of London, and so it was a huge deal for me, and I bonded. I have very fond memories of my English Sir Knights over there. So yeah, it's an experience. Hey, I don't know, but in Menorca there is a lodge over there, and it'll be nice to meet my Spanish brothers over there, and I shall report back about my experience over there in Menorca. I was spending I'll be spending most of my time with my family and my father under the sun and eating glorious food. But I'm going to see if I can get a chance. I'll go to lodge over there and see what those brothers are doing over there, and I'm sure it's going to be epic. But I've always had an epic experience wherever I've gone, and everyone, whether it's London, whether it's Dublin, whether it's Northern Ireland, whether it's Indiana, which you and me went to recently, and a lot of our interviews are based on. You just feel like family. You just feel like family, and it's a fantastic experience.
Well, this week I have Eastern Star coming up, which we have once a month, and then after that, I think we're having a special meeting with the Scottish Rite, because talking about where we're at and if we want to stay where we're at or if we're wanting to buy a new building. We had to sell our old building a few years back, and so we're in the lodge, or our Scottish Rite building. Valley is actually in with another lodge right now, and there's talk that we'll stay there. But for the leadership there, they're talking about getting together and just discussing that. And after that, then all the youth start having their grand sessions, basically. They call them different things, but they're basically their year end thing for the state people. And so I look forward to seeing the Job's Daughters and the Demo Lay and the Rainbow Girls before long.
That's right. As most illustrious Grand Master for the Council of Cryptic Masons State of Illinois, you got a lot of functions to go to, and a lot of meetings to be had, and you're invited across the state. Like in this interview, we're going to explain the Job's Daughters. But yeah, it seems like in certain jurisdictions, what I found really interesting coming to Illinois and just traveling was the amount of buildings that are Masonic buildings or were Masonic buildings but have been sold off. There's a lot of real estate that we Master Masons used to have in Illinois, but during the passage of time, we've sold, we've bought, we've sold, we've bought, and there's some beautiful buildings which are no longer ours, and so it's interesting to see how things move. And I hope your valley gets a new place where it's permanent and that can be handed over in the decades and years, or hopefully
Right.
a century to come.
Well, the problem when these buildings are built, they're built massive because, at the time, especially in the 40s and stuff after World War II, everybody was joining. And I mean, they built these buildings for thousands of people. And I think that right now masonry is back in a growth spurt where it's starting to grow again. But for a while, it really got slow. And, those buildings kind of went, I wouldn't want to say in disrepair, but people just didn't keep up with them like they sure should. And those old buildings, they're very high in maintenance. So if you don't keep up with them all the time, it'll get ahead of you, and then you're in trouble. And I think that's what happened. Not so much with the Valley of Southern Illinois for the Scottish Rite. It was just a giant building, and there just wasn't enough members anymore to keep it going.
Right. Yeah. What's really interesting is I was having this conversation on the Saturday, and in England and in Europe, a lot of the old buildings tend to get reused. However, the difference is, though, these buildings weren't at the massive sizes that you have in America. A lot of these buildings in America are just huge, and that's mainly because of like the landmass. So I guess in Europe, because the buildings were quite modest, some of them were fairly impressive, but they always were modest to a degree. There wasn't this exponential cost when you got to. I mean, there was a lot of reuse, so rebuilding, refurnishing, rewiring, repurposing, getting it all updated. I mean, there are those costs, but it wasn't like a cost like in America, because the building is like, I don't know, 10,000 square feet or 15,000 square feet, which is massive. So I think that's where it happens. But America has a massive history when it comes to building. I remember seeing pictures of Chicago and other places where it was very Victorian. You had these always massive Victorian style buildings, and then they were all just taken down and big massive sky. It was all you guys like to rebuild stuff from scratch. And I guess there are some pros and cons to that, but not much of the history of the buildings are left, really, in that sense. And we had a conversation about that with a few good fellows. I was talking to Barry Weir and Jeff Estes and some others about that. And we're going to have Barry on at some point. He's a past Most Worshipful Grand Master of the state of Illinois, so that's kind of exciting. But yeah, it's interesting, and I'm kind of the kind of guy which always like to preserve our history, and I preserve our buildings within the fraternity, but also for understanding that different places there are different aspects of why this has happened, how this has happened, and you guys go big. You love the big buildings.
I agree, and I kind of think that that's what brings people in as well, because I noticed that you got to have that storefront, and I think that's, in my opinion, why the Scottish Rite has bypassed the York Rite in many ways. I'm not saying, and the Scottish Rite is wonderful with their advertising. I mean, they really know how to sell themselves, and the York Rite not so much. I hate to say it, but it's just we don't advertise. But they got that storefront, and most of the Scottish Rite valleys up until recently had these huge buildings, cathedral-looking buildings, and people drive by, and their curiosity, if nothing else, says, "Oh, what's in there? But I want to check it out." Because people are nosy. Let's be truthful.
It was a massive,
And
yeah, it was a massive statement. I still would like, and I'm not sure how viable or feasible this is. So I'm not talking about the viability or the
yeah,
feasibility of it, because there could be arguments that it's just not feasible.
yeah, right.
It may be just something out of my own ego, which for Mason, that I would love to have because I would love to go to. That doesn't necessarily mean everyone else would do the same thing, but I would love for us to have one building, probably like in Springfield, which is done in the Victorian or Masonic style, which will be really cool. Maybe
Hmm.
has like 10 to 15 lodge rooms or 20 lodge rooms or whatever. And it's a center of excellence of Freemasonry. And also, there's a restaurant, maybe. People can do filming in there to increase revenue for the cost of the building and the running of the building. Because from my understanding, I didn't realize this until I was doing research, is pretty much all the capitals, nearly all the capitals in the USA in each state are kind of like in the middle of the state, and that was done
Hmm.
deliberately, so everyone can reach to the state, basically more or less in the same time from wherever you're coming from.
Sure.
Some may be longer than others, but if everyone goes to the middle, it's better than having the capital all the way up north and all the way down
Yeah.
south, basically, or east
Well,
or
it'd be
west.
nice if all the ground lodges of the state had a huge building.
That'd be awesome. That'd be
I
awesome.
got, and I don't, I'm not definitely putting down Illinois because they've done really well with masonry compared to a lot of states. But when I first come in and I went to Grand Lodge to their grand sessions, I was driving up with a group of guys, and I've only been in, say, 6 months, and I said, "Take me by that Grand Lodge. I want to see that," because I'd seen these pictures, and I just thought, here's going to be it. And they go, "Well, there it is," and I said, "Is it behind those apartment buildings?" And they said, "No, no, it's an office building. It's in there." And it just blew me away, and that's no disrespect for them because that's what they work with, and they choose to use our money more for helping the members as opposed to building a big building. But it just shocked me, as a new member. I thought, man, I expected this huge, great, big building.
Right. Well, you got kind of like Freemasons Hall. You've got Massachusetts has got a huge building. Their building has got 1,000 lodges inside, which is insane. You got the Philadelphia building, which is huge. So you got the one in Washington D.C. for the Scottish Rite, which is impressive.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, around the world there are some really impressive buildings. The challenge is how to make sure till time immemorial that they run without going into the red, and how
Right.
to make sure that it doesn't become a cumbersome financial burden to not only the Grand Lodge but to the members around the state, because effectively the members will be paying for something like this. I mean, it'll be nice. It'll be nice to have a conference hall place, which is done up, fairly nice with all the Masonic art and everything in the future. Maybe a small museum, but we can dream, and there are other places where you can go to. Like I said, in the UK, it'll be Freemasons Hall. Dublin has a
Mm-hmm.
fantastic Grand Lodge, a beautiful Grand Lodge. Mark Mason's Hall for the York Rite guys. Oh my God, it's pretty epic, guys. And then you've got other jurisdictions. I mean, Brazil's got a great Grand Lodge. Spain would have one as well. Menorca, where I'm going to, I saw pictures of this really cool ancient, Victorian-esque type of building.
Yeah.
So there we have spurts, but again, we're in an interesting phase. You kind of like tapped onto it where we are regrowing, and a lot of our schisms in the past 50, 60 years is we've had two near extinction level events. One which was First World War for the European Freemasons, wiped out loads of. It was such a shock and horror in how many brothers died, especially in England. Like we talk about the lost generations. That actually Freemasons Hall was built as a war memorial to the fallen brethren of
Oh, cool.
World War One, and it was a massive loss. I mean, I have data and I have research where there were lodges of 250 active members who all got wiped out and died in the war, and that is a huge loss because you're talking about fathers, uncles, sons, who could have had families, who could have continued their line, and were wiped out, and they were no longer non-existent. And that happened in England twice: World War One, World War Two. It happened in America, predominantly in World War Two, where 500,000 Americans, predominantly men, got wiped out, and a lot of them were Freemasons. Because one of the first things that we do is we pledge our allegiance to the country which we're in, and that's a very big deal in the US in making that pledge to that country. So as soon as a war comes up, even back then, if there were people signing up in droves, it would be Master Masons, and so we had that. Now a lot of people post the war did come back, a lot of veterans, and joined Freemasonry for the Brotherhood. If you go to, I think it's episode 2, or episode, I think it's episode 2, where the most worshipful Grand Master of Indiana, David Morgan, was saying a lot of veterans signed up. That's very true, but you have to remember that out of that pool of people who joined, a shed load of them got killed. So
Yeah.
even though people came and joined, it was a tiny amount compared to the amount that would have
Sure.
joined if you didn't lose 500,000. And 500,000, predominantly men, back then, if you do the population ratio of the population back then, which was tiny in comparison to the population of the US today, is massive. I mean, 500 million compared to the 370 million or 60 million that you have in the USA, compared to way back then, which was, I believe, could be 50 or 90 million, is a massive difference, massive percentage ratio. So you had a massive wipeout of men, and although there was a small bit of a boost post World War II, it wasn't enough to replenish the loss of good men that you would have had to join. And then we kind of, from my understanding, my research, we kind of shut our doors. There were a few seismic events. You could call them cultural revolutions, to take a point from China, where you had the 60s and you had the 70s. And there were massive cultural upheavals, not only with like the music, but the way of life and the culture dramatically changed from the way life was in the 40s, 50s, 30s, and 20s. So there was a massive cultural, some people call it an awakening, some people call it a cultural revolution, some people look at it like this should have never happened, it was awful, and some people love it. And I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. We're in where we're in. And and Masonry kind of closed our doors, if you go back to episode 1, because mainly because of Joseph Goebbels' brilliant, he was the world's genius, evil propagandist for the Nazi Party, and the conspiracy theories and all the falsehoods that are still today kind of like cling on to Freemasonry, but it comes directly rooted from there. Because prior World War II, especially in England and other places, and even in America, Freemasonry wasn't, we were doing parades on the streets. Freemasonry was a well-known organization. It was an upstanding organization for those who wanted to join. And then post the era of fascism in Nazi Germany, we kind of all closed our door. But you have to remember, like, you had the fascists in Spain, you had the fascists in Germany, then you had the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union hated Freemasons. Freemasonry was banned. So it was only until the collapse of the Soviet Union Freemasonry got back in. So then you had the fantastic, I call them fantastic because they were really good at spreading disinformation. The KGB and the Soviet Union, you've got the PRC, So a lot of the world did come up with a lot of anti-Masonic paraphernalia and a lot of misunderstanding. And some of that paraphernalia, some of that propaganda, then in their heads became reality. And so we became
Sure.
even more of like the enemy, like or the secret hand that rules the Western world, all that nonsense, basically. So there we are, and now we are in what I call a phase of rebuilding the Second Temple, and what that alludes to is we are back, kind of like pre 1717, building the craft. And I think there's going to be explosions if we continue building it properly in the next couple of decades, where I think men today really want to be part of something. And in this world we're in, where everyone's glued to their mobile phones or computer screens or TV screens or whatever for their entertainment and for their, for their interests, men have become more distant and more lonely because of lack of social interaction. And Freemasonry is the best place for good men to come and join us for that brotherhood, for that social interaction, and becoming a better version of yourself.
Well, I heard that story, and I think it was told by one of the people. We've done so many interviews now. I want to say it was by the Grand Master of Indiana, actually, but I could be wrong. But, he was talking about the guy that reached out to them that said he didn't even have a friend. And, man, that's tough to swallow. The more you think about that, is trying to go through this world hard enough, but without anybody, it's really hard.
Well,
And in Masonry, you can find that friend and brother.
well, think about it. In this day and age, there aren't many social outlets for men to go do stuff together with all the pressures they have. And even though, let's just say, well, they can do this and they can do that. I've seen too many people, whether it's on the trains or the airports or the buses in Europe or here, or just going to even going to our lodges before the meeting. Loads of people are on their phone constantly. They can't put the thing
Yeah,
down, and that phone has become their connection and social interaction. The problem is, you got a device that's in between you and actually having a conversation face to face, and that's really problematic. And there are researchers coming out with the new technology that we built, where younger men are becoming more insular. Younger men are having less interactions and stuff like that. Not compared to me, where it was like I was constantly hanging around with my friends. Even at a time where we didn't have emails or mobile phones,
sure.
we made effort to go and do a lot of things together. And I think as technology makes things effortless, like, oh, I don't need to go to his house. I can just see him on a computer screen, and I can talk to him whilst I'm shooting some people in this computer game or whatever. Or we can watch the same thing in our own houses and talk to each other over, the phone or some sort of app. And that convenience, actually, I think, may be more problematic, because you're not having that social interaction as him coming over to your house, or you're going over to his house, or you're going to a specific place to watch something or play a game. Everything is centralized where you don't have to move, and everything's at the touch of your fingertips, especially in the USA. So
Yeah.
I think there is a massive potential for our fraternity, which is Freemasonry, to grow and be that place for good men to become a better version of themselves, and actually see them grow, become confident, become leaders of the different areas that they are in the world, and to really do good service to mankind.
And I would like to say, for anybody out there listening, that's maybe not a Mason yet and thinking about it, take a chance. You know how many people that it's multiple. Even a guy we interviewed not long ago, and you'll probably hear it in an upcoming thing. Their biggest regret with masonry is they didn't do it years ago. It's definitely mine. I didn't do it for years. I worked on in a job where I would do a month of days and a month of evenings, and a month of days and a month of evenings. And I always thought, why would I want to pay dues to something where I can't, I can't even go half the time because of the way the meetings felt. And it's just, you find out that when you got in it, you could have did it, and you could have done your best with it, and you could have went part of the time, and you're just so far behind on what because you missed that. Can't believe you could live without this brotherhood that you have.
Without any further ado, have you got any last words before we jump straight into the interview with the Grand Guardian and also the most honored Queen of the Bethel of the Job's Daughters?
I would like to say something real quick. Guys, thanks to you guys that are listening right now, our videos are taking off like we never thought they would. I'm sorry, our podcast, I should say. I'm thinking about doing these things, but our podcast is really growing and it's doing really good thanks to you guys. So if you would help us get the word out, tell your friends about this thing, that you're listening to, and maybe share it and subscribe, because that helps us to know which direction we want to go. That we want to keep bringing good contact to you guys, and we're wanting to go out of the state, and we're wanting to go out of the country. And if that's what you guys want, just let us know. And with that, Godspeed.
And welcome back to yet another interview from On the Level podcast, your podcast on all things Masonry. It is an extreme privilege and honor to have two fantastic ladies from the Job's Daughters. We have Amanda Fernandez, the honored queen, the honored Bethel Queen of the state of Illinois, and we have Mindy Matson, the Grand Guardian of the Bethel's Job's Daughters of the state of Illinois. Hello to you both, and starting off with let's talk to our honored Bethel Queen. Amanda, how did you get into Job's Daughters, and briefly explain what is Job's Daughters?
Yeah, so Job's Daughters is an organization for young women ages 10 to 20. And we're basically helping these young women become the leaders of tomorrow. We teach skills like public speaking. We do a lot of charitable service. The girls plan their own events, run their own meetings. So it's a lot of hands-on leadership experience that they gain. And I was introduced to Job's Daughters. Originally, I was a Girl Scout, but my Girl Scout troop was dying. It was really small, and eventually our troop leader moved away, so the troop disbanded, and my mom was looking for something else to stick me in. And so she came across Job's Daughters, and she was like, perfect, let's get her in this. And so I originally met my Bethel. I believe they were helping with my local lodge's breakfast with the soldiers. They were serving breakfast. And so I got to meet them all. I thought they were like super cool. So I agreed to join. My mom was like, 6 months. If you don't like it, you can drop out. And it's been 11 years and I'm still here. So it was really fun. I loved it a lot.
This is Billy McIntyre again, because Sam forgot I was here. But I want to talk anyway. So my question for you is, so when you joined, was it hard for you to join? I mean, for the people that, and I know the answer to this, but I'm talking for people that aren't in the Job's Daughters that might want to join the Job's Daughters. Is this a hard process, or was this something easy for you to do?
No. My dad was a Mason, so I already had my Masonic background, and so it was super easy. I signed my application, and like a few weeks later, I was able to join. But even with those without Masonic relations or like affiliation, it's still super easy. They just need to be sponsored by a Mason,
right.
Which there's plenty of Masons willing to sponsor anyone from any of the Bethels. So yeah, you just fill out an application and you're pretty much good to go.
Well, I wanted to also say that I have had the privilege to work with Amanda and her line, I guess you would call it, this year. And these girls do outstanding work. I couldn't be more proud to be with these girls every time they do something. You know, they put their heart and soul into everything they do, and they just work their butt off, and it shows. They do beautiful work, and they should be proud. Amanda should be very proud of the year she's had.
Yeah, and the same question goes to you, Grand Guardian of the state of Illinois for the Job's Daughters, Mindy Matson. How did you start? When did you start? How did you get involved? And give us your brief on To Us and the World of Job's Daughters and the organization.
Well, thank you very much. Interestingly enough, my introduction to the Masonic world started with the Order of DeMolay. That is the young men's group for ages 12 to 21. And obviously, I had friends and family members who joined that as teenagers, and I could not join that. And then I discovered that Job's Daughters existed. And I loved the ritual, the memory work. It teaches the lessons of the different organizations, whichever the organization is. That book of ceremonies is what teaches you about the organization. And I loved that, and I loved joining an organization where I had that. But yeah, I didn't know about these organizations until I was 14, 15 years old. So I joined at a little bit of a later age. And the Bethel I joined, unfortunately, was very small at the time after I was finished as Honor Queen, which is like the president of the local group. It kind of didn't do much after that. And then I started working and going to college, and came back several years later as an adult volunteer. Funny enough, at the same Bethel, and shortly after, Amanda joined. So we've kind of taken this path together, coincidentally enough.
Well, let me tell the people out there a story about this wonderful lady. She has a very strange little thing that she does, and she has these little ducks. And she put these little ducks everywhere, and I get to see the aftermath of these ducks when the next group comes in. And so, you know, I know where they're coming from, but a lot of these guys have no clue where these ducks are coming from. And they say, there's ducks everywhere. And I said, there is? And they're showing to me, what's the significance of these ducks? And I said, I don't know. And so they're gathering them up, and they're, and then, I have to say, that's the Job's Daughters things. Oh, so it opens a whole door that you can talk to them about the youth group and what they're doing, and I think she does it because it's cool and it's funny, but it's getting the word out, and no one would even know that unless you sit back and watch the reaction of these 70 and 80-year-old guys that has no idea why there's ducks everywhere all over the lodge.
So you are correct. I did not come up with that. I saw some random TikTok video or something where someone hid a bunch of them around their parents' house, and I went, oh, that looks like fun. So I carry tiny ducks with me, and I leave them where I go. But I will say, hearing you talk about how it's become a talking point for Job's Daughters, that was not the intention, but that delights me in a way that I could never express. That's absolutely amazing. I just do it because people think it's funny and it makes them smile. But if it has turned into something more, that's fantastic.
Yep. Like I said, it opened the doors for me to talk about your group and just say, hey, here's what's going on. And that, then they pique some interest. So, I always think anything to do to get someone the knowledge of what's going on in your organization that maybe help some girl that needs a friend or needs somebody, that Job's Daughter will be there for them.
So, Amanda, if I'm not saying you will, I'm not telling you what you should do or what you shouldn't do, but let's say in a world where you in the future have a daughter, is this an organization that you would like her to join? And if so, why? What are the qualities? What has been the experience between you and the Bethel ladies that you're a member of, and also your Grand Guardians? Tell us a little bit about the journey.
Yeah, no, if I ever have a daughter in the future, I would absolutely want her to join Job's Daughters. And even if I had like a son, I would want him to join DeMolay. I think not just Job's Daughters, but all of our youth organizations, they offer some like things that a lot of other organizations don't. I was a really awkward young kid. It was really hard for me to make friends. And so coming into a group where uh, we were all sisters, everyone was friendly to one another. We got to know people from all around the state of Illinois and even all around the world, um, and be friends and text on the reg. Like, it's so magical. But also, like, on the other hand, being able to say, hey, I really like art, so I want our Bethel to do more art related things, or I really like sports, so I want our Bethel to do more sports related things, or um, the Shriners Hospital is really important to me, so I want our Bethel to raise money or gather supplies. Having these young women be able to say, I really like this, and then go into planning something, knowing the ins and outs. Well, oh, I have to call the roller skating rink because we want to go roller skating so that we can find out how much it costs and when they're open. It provides a lot of insight, and it for me, it raised my confidence and my skills and my abilities. The memorization work, as Mindy mentioned, has helped me so much with my schoolwork. It has been a lifesaver. I've learned so much time management. I feel like I hold myself to a higher standard because I know what I can do. I know what I'm capable of with all of these skills that I've learned. And it's just been so great growing up and seeing the work that I've done, but also see our newer members start to become more confident in themselves as they learn these skills, as they do these amazing things. That has also been super magical. And I'd like to see my daughter go through that one day.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. So, Mindy, from Amanda, what she just said, in Freemasonry, one thing that is practiced and one thing that we go with of a kind of a discipline mantra, and with no puns intended here, is once you're a Master Mason, every other brother you treat on the level. And what that means is you throw your egos out the door and you make those bonds of fellowship, and you have a space where you trust in those around you as they've made the same oaths and obligations as you have, and you have a fraternity or a lodge where you'll have these men who will back you and support you and make sure that you become a better man. Is that very similar when you become a Bethel lady, a Job's Daughters? Is that kind of entrenched the idea of once you take part, these are your sisters, and move your ego out the door and be a better version of yourself?
Yes, I would agree that Job's Daughters, like you said, like all of the other Masonic organizations, it's a family. It really is. I will say, let's be honest, we deal with young ladies, teenage girls. So not to say that there aren't bumps along the way sometimes, but that's what makes it even better as an adult watching the interactions, is because even if they have disagreements, they still come back to the fact that they are sisters and Job's daughters.
Well, the good thing I see is, and it never stops from what I've seen, because when I see the people that's moved on from being Job's daughters, and when they still get to meet in whatever capacity they meet, they're still sisters. I mean, it's like seeing your sister, your real sister, after many years. There's a lot of bond there.
No, absolutely. Now, what's really interesting, fascinating, picking up from yourself, Amanda, and yourself, Mindy, is a lot of girls, and this has been going on for decades of research in communities, in schools, with the pressures that you have in today's society, in terms of the corporate look of how girls should be and what they should be wearing and what they should look like and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of pressures, and one of the things is that many, not all, but there are many women, many girls, especially at a young age, who lack that confidence. Confidence is a huge issue, And what's really interesting is when you're speaking, when I've seen you, and you exude that confidence, but at the same time you have that humility as well, and you command the room. I think that's really important, and the memorization as well is so you have an advantage in the academics where there is less of that, especially today, than there was when I was growing up. And although I'm not in school anymore, and I'm an old Englishman. The memorization that I've been able to, I call it muscle memory, the muscle discipline in my brain that Freemasonry has helped me tremendously in the professional workspace, in life. It's made me more patient, because you've got to be very patient to memorize loads of pages of ritual, and it gives you a bit more of a calmer outlook as the words really integrate. Now, some of the ritual, and we can't talk about the ins and outs of it. Is it family orientated? Is it orientated to the fellowship of the sisters? If you can give us an insight, Amanda, on that, and if you have anything you want to touch base on what I've just said, please feel free.
Yeah. So bits and pieces of our ritual kind of touch on different things. There is great importance in making sure that we honor our parents and guardians, and respect them, as well as pay homage to our Masonic heritage. But a lot of our ritual has to do with the story of Job, and basically like his trials. Our big three things that we teach is patience, faith, reward. We talk about Job's patience as he had everything taken from him, his family, his wealth, his even his health was all stripped away, and how he still remained faithful. And in the end got his reward. So a lot of our ritual plays on to the patience, faith, reward, as well as our parents and guardians and our Masonic heritage.
No, mate, that's awesome, Billy. That's pretty awesome, because especially in today's world, Billy and Mindy, having that link with the family, and we said this in the other episode when we interviewed the State Master Council of the state of Illinois, and it's very difficult to operate as a teenager if you go back as a historian. I always reflect back to history. If you go back even 50, 60, 70 years, you had, it was very likely that your father or your mother had more than 4 siblings. So you had multiple aunts and uncles, and your grandparents would have even more bigger, number of siblings and stuff like that. So there was a family, and that family was actually localized in the area that you live. Not in every jurisdiction, not in every situation, but that was more of the norm. And in today's society, where you have mum and dad, or you just have mum, or you just have dad, and then your grandparents are in some other jurisdiction in the USA, 1,000 miles less, and you don't see them, and your father or mother may have a brother, but they're somewhere else. Your blood relatives, not for everyone, but it's more common now than ever before, that they are far away and you don't see them. You might see them at a Christmas or a Thanksgiving, but you don't have any interaction. So having that kind of support network, having that family within the Job's Daughters, being able to communicate with a group of sisters where there is more so one of the prominent things that I found out in England, and also I guess it's relevant in the US, is as always, kids are kids, and bullying is rife in some areas of the teenage experience. And to have a place where you have this is where I'm going to you, Mindy, to have grand guardians, to have people, having that focus. You're not dealing with 30, 40 kids every day and X amount of classes. This is a place where girls can get together, do some fantastic art activities, whether it's art, sports, gaming, or whatever it may be, and also be under the watchful eye of the grand guardians, who, my understanding, a lot of them are parents. Some of them do have their daughter in either Job's Daughters or De Molay or even the Rainbow Girls. Do you want to talk a bit more about your role as a Grand Guardian and a Guardian of a Bethel, and what you kind of look out for, and how you guys solidify that role of ensuring that, although there are other areas in aspects of life of a teenage girl, this is a very good place to mitigate stuff like bullying and stuff that is very difficult to identify when there's so much going on in those kind of institutions.
So as Grand Guardian, that's a little bit different. I'm kind of like the chairman of the Board of Trustees at the state level. So my job is to work with our other state level adults to do larger programs throughout the state, but also to advise and assist with local Bethels. So local Bethels would be like your lodge, like your local troop. Bethel is just the local group name. But I actually did spend 8 years as Bethel Guardian of Bethel 52 in Ottawa. And first and foremost, one of the great things that Job's Daughters International does to help ensure the safety of our youth is that all of our adult volunteers must be a certified adult volunteer. So we actually take a class, we get background checked. So I think that's a very important step in making sure that the adults who work with our daughters are appropriate to be with them, to put it simply. But it's just great because each Bethel has its own other group of adult volunteers, like you said, to work with the daughters and to make sure that they are learning the skills they should be learning and focusing on improving themselves instead of criticizing others.
That's awesome. Billy, do you have a question?
Yeah. No, I'm taking it all in. I went through that certification process, and it's a really good thing to do. If you're even thinking about becoming a helper of one of these, youth groups, it's a good thing to do.
Yes.
And I do want to make it clear that we always welcome adults to come visit us. Even if you're not a certified adult volunteer, we love it when adults come to our events. We have some that are public, some that are only open to eligible adults who would be Master Masons, females who are relatives of Master Masons. So for anyone who's interested in learning more, I do hope they don't think they have to go out and take this class before they can even come check out what Job's Daughters is.
No, but
I just always strongly.
Give them the website. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine. So Illinois Job's Daughters has a website. It is www.iljd.org. But there's also, if you're not in Illinois, there is jobsdaughtersinternational.org, and that would have all kinds of information. So wherever you are depends on where you would go to find the information.
That's fantastic. I want to now switch gears because we've kind of laid the ground and we've covered a great space of what Job's Daughters is and what you both do and your experiences. I hear about something.
I know that we've got.
Yes.
Oh, go ahead, Sam. I thought you were done.
No. There's something that's very exciting that happens every year that I haven't attended, but it sounds very exciting, and it's your annual grand sessions. And from my understanding, the young ladies and the Grand Guardians is something they always look forward to. Amanda, can you give us your insight into your grand sessions? What is it? Why do you ladies look forward to it? What happens there? And we'll touch on Mindy as well.
Yeah. So our annual session is basically like our statewide convention. So it's where we celebrate the past year as we transition into the new one. Our old officers get to give their final reports, and our new officers for the year get to be installed into their positions. So it's really exciting. On the youth side of things, it is a great excuse to see everyone because it's an event that everyone gets to go to. So it's basically just like a week of hanging out with your friends in a hotel, swimming in the pool. There's a lot of activities and games that we get to do. But it's also really magical to see your friends, become Grand Bethel officers for the next year and participate in pageant, which is our competition for our ambassadors, the Miss Illinois Job's Daughters and our Junior Miss Illinois Job's Daughters. So seeing the new people and celebrating the new people going in while also congratulating the old officers going out. So it's really fun.
Oh, cool.
That's great.
Go on, Billy.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's great, and I want to apologize. I know that you guys' time is short, and you're getting ready to. You're within about a month? You guys are having your grand session.
I think we're on 17 days.
Yeah, it's really close. It's really
Not
close.
that I'm counting.
So yeah, no, not at all. Well, you don't know. No. Oh. I said you're really going to miss this too. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
we could.
It kind of
Okay.
muted and then unmuted
Okay.
and then muted and then unmuted.
Okay, I don't know what's wrong with it, but anyway, you guys you're going to miss this when it's gone. I promise you, because it's like, whether you know or not, you're used to being in charge, and all of a sudden you're going to be, no one's ever going to call you again. They're going to say, we don't care what she thinks, because I'm getting ready to do the same thing. And everybody's told me, oh, you don't know what it's like. No one calls you anymore. And right now it seems like it's okay, but I bet it'll be a different thing. But like I said, I wish we got you on sooner, but hopefully you guys will follow up with us anyway and just see what your experience is like looking from the outside back in. And Amanda, would you be willing to do that, or both of you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've got one final question because we still got
Sure.
4 minutes left till we hit the 30-minute mark, and I just want to say, Mindy, do you want to explain a bit more about the grand sessions? I've never heard about the pageant. I think that's super awesome that there is a pageant and there's a Miss Job's Daughter Illinois, and then I guess that pageant goes on to international as well. What other activities do these ladies do? And what's really exciting? It says very familiar. Well, I'm sure it's very different from our grand sessions, but one thing that's symbolic is we get to meet everyone from the state, and then there are other people from other states who get together, and you get to meet everyone who are, trying to go for the same vision, same kind of, ideas. And so I'm really excited to know that a bit more of your grand sessions and what excites you about it. What do the girls really love about it? To give the idea to the public, to the mothers out there and fathers out there, or even the young ladies who are listening in on the YouTube who may want to have something like this where they can have an experience like this in Job's Daughters. What would you say your grand session does?
Grand session, by definition, is our annual meetings. So there is a business aspect to it. As Grand Guardian, I will actually be leading the Grand Guardian Council meetings, which is all of our voting adults in the state of Illinois. And Amanda will be leading the Grand Bethel meeting, which is all of the daughters in Illinois. So Grand Bethel too, I don't know if we touched on this. So on the local level, you have a Bethel. On the state level, we have a Grand Bethel, which is it's a statewide subsidiary club that is made up from girls all over the state. So if you're a member of Illinois Job's Daughters and you go to session, you're a member of Grand Bethel. And then they have their elected officers, which with Amanda being the highest elected officer for Illinois' Grand Bethel. And there are also appointed officers. So they reflect the different positions and the different jobs that you would do at the local level. But it's really cool because it's made up of girls from all over the state, like I said. So we will be running our meetings, which does include some things like, obviously we have constitution and bylaws that determine, it dictates how we do everything. But I actually love how it's just a culmination of everything we do for the year. You know, you have Amanda presiding over her meeting as Grand Bethel Honor Queen when she's worked so hard to be elected to this position. You have our Miss Illinois Job's Daughter and Junior Miss Illinois Job's Daughter passing that title on to the next in those positions that has competed spectacularly in memory work and a test and done an interview and a walk-on in, you know, usually a gorgeous gown. But we also have other fun things. I know this year we have some arts and crafts. There's always a competition that is for crafts and art called Librarians Contest. I know we're actually somewhere where there's a water park with a lifeguard on duty, so the girls can have fun in there. It's always a bittersweet moment because, like Amanda said, you're celebrating the previous year and almost mourning it because it's coming to an end. But then you feel conflicted because you're very excited to see all of these other young ladies just coming into themselves and taking on these new roles and responsibilities.
There you go.
Also,
I think it's wonderful.
Also, I might get a pie in the face. We'll see how that goes.
I'll be there for that.
So, yeah. Well, Job's Daughters International. So we have there's a philanthropic called the Hearing Improvement Kids Endowment Fund. It's the Hike Fund, and the Associate Grand Guardian, Don Curry, and I. By the way, should say I want to give a shout out to him because he is. You should have him on here sometime. He is such a huge supporter of not just Job's Daughters, but all of our youth organizations. He's an amazing guy. But he and I are actually going head to head for Hike. We're raising money, and the person who raises the most gets to present a pie to the other one, to the face.
That's cool.
I love it. I love it.
I'm sure a lot of people look forward to that.
Oh, I need pictures. I'm going to England, and then I'm going to be in Menorca, and then I'm going to go back to England, and then I'm back here. So there you go. That is the Job's Daughters. I can't wait to get into a bit of the history with you, Billy, about it. Yes, Billy.
Before we sign off, I'd like to say, if you guys listening to this want to know anything more about the Job's Daughters, please reach out to the website and contact them because you'll not be sorry for getting involved with this. And on a side note, if you're enjoying this content that we're doing on these and want more, please share it with your friends and, subscribe and like and give us a good review if you get a chance because it really helps us know that we're going in the right direction.
Thank you for listening to On the Level Podcast, your Masonic podcast. When you are ready, duly and truly prepared, you can always knock on the door.